All right, today we're digging into a theory with a title that you just can't ignore: bullshit jobs. It's a pretty provocative idea, so let's get right into what it's all about. I mean, let's be honest. Have you ever been sitting at your desk, just staring into the void of your computer screen, and had that little voice in your head whisper, "Does any of this actually matter?" Well, if you've ever felt that, you are definitely not alone.
That feeling is right at the heart of a theory from the late anthropologist David Graeber. It all kicked off with an essay he wrote back in 2013 that just exploded. It struck such a massive nerve with people that he expanded it into this full-length book, which is just packed with stories from people who are convinced their jobs were completely meaningless.
So what does Graeber actually mean by a bullshit job? Because it's not just a job you hate or one that's super boring. No, the definition is way more specific than that. And this right here is the absolute key to the whole theory. It's not about some expert or a consultant calling a job pointless. It's the employee themselves, the person actually doing the work 8 hours a day who secretly believes it serves absolutely no real purpose.
And for Graeber, this isn't just inefficient or kind of silly. He argues it's seriously harmful. He actually calls it a profound psychological violence. Wow. The idea is that as human beings, we are just wired with this deep need to contribute something to the world. And being forced to show up and pretend your work matters when you know deep down that it doesn't, he says that's an experience that just crushes the human soul.
Now, to really build out his case, Graeber didn't just leave this as some vague feeling. He got really specific and broke these kinds of jobs down into 5 distinct categories. Let's run through them.
Okay, so first up, you've got the flunkies. These are jobs that basically exist to make a boss look or feel important. Think of a doorman at a building with automatic doors. Second are the goons. Jobs that have a kind of aggressive or manipulative element, like lobbyists or maybe some telemarketers. Third, he calls duct tapers. These are people hired to fix problems that really shouldn't even exist in the first place. Fourth, the box tickers. Oh, we've all seen this. These are the jobs that exist just so a company can say it's doing something that it's not really doing, like creating reports no one ever reads. And finally, number 5, the taskmasters, whose main role is to create pointless work for other people.
This brings us to the million-dollar question, right? If these jobs are so pointless and inefficient, why would our supposedly hyper-efficient capitalist system create so many of them? It doesn't really add up. Well, Graeber had a few theories. He argued it's got less to do with pure economics than we think. For one, he points to what he calls managerial feudalism, the idea that having a lot of people working under you makes you seem more important and powerful. Then there's our whole work ethic, this cultural belief that hard work is a virtue in itself, even if the work is totally useless. And he even had a political angle. If you keep everyone busy with nonsense, they have less time and energy to question how things are being run.
So that's the theory. It's compelling, it's provocative, but what does the actual data say? This is where the whole story gets really complicated and, frankly, pretty fascinating.
After Graeber's essay just took off, a 2015 YouGov poll in the UK asked people a very direct question. Does your job make a meaningful contribution to the world? And a staggering 37% of people said no. Think about that. That's more than 1 in 3 people basically admitting their work is pointless. This, of course, became a cornerstone of Graeber's argument.
But here's where it gets weird. In that exact same poll, there's a huge paradox. While 37% said their job wasn't meaningful to the world, a solid majority, 63%, said their job was personally fulfilling. So how does that work? You can feel like your job is useless on a grand scale, but still find personal satisfaction in it day to day. This just shows how complex this feeling really is.
And when other researchers dug in, the picture got even murkier. A huge 2021 study in the EU found the complete opposite of Graeber's claim. They found that the number of people who felt their jobs were useless was actually low and getting lower. But then, a 2023 study in the US found evidence that seemed to support Graeber, showing that people in the jobs he called useless were in fact more likely to feel that way. So the data itself is basically pointing in 2 different directions. So what are we supposed to make of all this conflicting evidence? Maybe we're asking the wrong question. Maybe the problem isn't the job itself, but something else entirely. The researchers from that 2021 EU study suggested a different lens, the classic concept of alienation. They argued that the feeling of uselessness might not come from the tasks you're doing, but from terrible management and a work culture that just disconnects you from any sense of pride or purpose in what you produce. So let's try to pull this all together. The feeling of doing pointless work, that is absolutely real, and the data shows it's psychologically damaging. The big debate now is about the source.
Is the job itself fundamentally useless, like Graeber argued? Or is it the work culture, the bad management, the bureaucracy that can make even a useful job feel totally meaningless? What Graeber undeniably did was put his finger on this incredibly painful tension at the very heart of the modern economy.
And that leaves us with one final, huge question to think about. When we feel our work is pointless, is it because the job truly is unnecessary, or is it because our workplaces have become so broken that they can strip the meaning out of even the most essential work? The answer to that? Well, it probably changes everything.